Welcome to Speaking of Sasquatch. We are reporting from Washington State. In this issue, we are privileged to be able to present the case history of Kate, who, since the age of 2, has had an ongoing interaction with the Sasquatch people. This interaction has entailed both face-to-face encounters as well as structured and highly effective teaching in the dreamtime. What she has to say, after decades of acquiring and processing information from the Sasquatch, we find to be of an exceptional order. Few hairless humans have been able to distill and present this information as cogently as Kate. As her personal growth has been shaped profoundly by this interaction, so has grown her ability to function as an ambassador on their behalf. We believe this information will be useful to those of us seeking, as students, to grow closer to our ancient brothers and sisters. Following our visit with Kate will be a discussion with our principal contributor, Kathleen Odom, as well as other material that we hope may be valuable to you. On a rainy fall day, we began our interview with Kate by asking her to describe her childhood and how her contact with the Sasquatch developed.
We moved every year. So at 2 years old, I have some of my first memories of living in a small town. And I remember that all 6 of us were outside all the time. We had a horse and a home by the river. So we would spend all day outside in activity, and everyone in my family is athletic, so we're always busy doing something. My father was very artistic and a poet, and my mother was artistic and made paintings. And my father was always moving. He needed to move in order to write poetry. He would tell us that the inspiration would last for a time, and then he needed to be in another landscape, learning about the history of that landscape, and that would inspire his poems. My first experience happened on a piece of property owned by my grandparents that I would go in the summer, spend a lot of my summertime there playing. Every summer, and really every holiday we would go, and I have a very large family. We would get together with many of our cousins, and so the time there was spent playing outside in the woods. There were very dense woods behind my grandmother's house, and then in front of our house was a 200-foot cliff that dropped off to Puget Sound and the water, so we could take the steps and go down and play all day on the clay walls or in the water. So for us as children, it couldn't really have been much more fun to get together. The face-to-face happened to be during the summertime, after a very difficult event where my mother miscarried and needed to go into the hospital. So I needed to spend time with someone, and my grandmother offered to have me for a while.
Did you ever have a sense of any of your ancestors, your human ancestors, like your grandmother, also having had this interaction?
She said that she always felt safe in the woods, and I asked her recently if she had ever seen Sasquatch, and she said no, but the Native Americans that she was friends with knew they were there. And they were immigrants from Norway. So she was a first-generation American born here, and she grew up on a piece of property that they had bought off of the Tulalip Indian Reservation. And then when she became an adult, she purchased some property on the same reservation just down the road. And so she was always spending time in the woods herself, and she considered herself a tomboy. She loved being outside, and she was very comfortable. It was completely natural for her. And so it was also completely natural for her to encourage us as children to be outside too. From my memory, the non-Native American neighbors to my grandmother, it seemed like they would cluster, and then the Native Americans clustered in other neighborhoods nearby, just across the road, really. But she took the school bus with Native American children, and she was very, very aware of the history and felt passionately that she feels to this day, she's 90 years old, she feels to this day that it was a crime committed on the Native Americans on the reservation that she grew up in to be forced to convert to Christianity. She keeps inside of her hope chest a pair of little shoes, little white shoes that were given to her by a Native American friend of hers, and they represent for her children that were forced to leave their customs and traditions behind abruptly and conform and take on names that weren't their own names and speak English. My grandparents both were raised in very religious homes, and both of them left the churches and would not attend church and claimed to be atheist. Now my grandmother doesn't claim to be atheist. She said she believes in God and she thinks it's wonderful. Looking back on her life, at the circumstances and the coincidences that would occur, almost as if there was an unseen guiding force behind all of it so that she would learn. So she feels very connected to Source and is looking forward to her afterlife at 90. She feels very tied to the community there, but not just as a non-native. She feels native. When I was playing in the very dense woods behind my grandmother's house, what comes to mind is sometimes they would send me a flash of what would feel like a memory, but it wouldn't be something that would have happened in my lifetime. They'd show me an image of flashing it of bodies in the trees. So I was always looking up, like, where would I see a dead body in the tree with birds taking pieces of the body away. And I didn't understand, and it didn't scare me, but it only frightened me when I would tell my cousins, what are you looking for? Well, I'm looking for bodies up in the trees that should be up there, because when we die, this is where we should be buried. We should return to the sky this way. That was my intuition, but it was very upsetting to find out that, I wasn't supposed to have these ideas. The first meeting I had with Sasquatch face-to-face was taking place at my grandmother's home when I was supposed to be taking a nap, but I didn't like naps and I wasn't sleepy. And I turned my awareness from where I was playing in my bed, my crib, to the closet area. And this is a room that wasn't familiar to me. So I look over to the closet area, and in the doorway of the closet was a very large figure, a very large person, and he didn't fit in the doorway very well, but he was able to look up to me, and we locked eyes. And at that moment, I was completely frozen in place. I couldn't move a muscle, and I immediately received information, and he was talking to me saying, I am you, we belong. And so I had the sense that he was my family. He didn't look strange to me at all, but he said, I want you to know that we are here with you, and you are with us all the time, even when we're not together physically. And this is your life. And I instantly saw my whole life flash before my eyes, which was almost too much for me to handle, but I could see all of it from the very beginning to my death, and everyone and everything that I would be related to. And I wanted to scream in terror. I wanted to get out of that, not because he was strange to me, but because I didn't want that life that I just saw. I just realized, I don't want this, I want out, So I tried to move, I tried to run. I tried to scream and I couldn't, as long as he was looking at me. And but he had one more message, and that is that we love you. Thank you for being. And he left me. And the way he left was also new to me. I'd never seen this happen. He stepped back, and as he stepped back into the darkness, he was gone. So after he was gone, I could move again my body, and I tried screaming for my grandmother, and I tried getting myself to move, to climb out of the crib, to get out, but I couldn't really move for a while. So I do remember staring at a image, a painting she had on the wall of a water wheel on a creek, and that's where it was left. I was just stunned. I was fully awake through the entire thing, and I stayed awake, and I really didn't know what to do, and I didn't know if it was going to happen again. So it led to a series of dreams where I was again in the same room over and over and over. I would encounter my guide or friend, it was to become, but I would always be trying to run and leave and go down the stairs, because this room had a long stairway with red shag carpet, and I just always have the eternal stairway to run down and try to escape out of. But
and that was the recurring theme.
The recurring theme.
So do you think that dream material was more coming from your subconscious then in processing?
Yeah, I couldn't make any sense of why suddenly this happened to me. And I couldn't explain. I didn't have the vocabulary at 2 years old to explain the monster that I saw that didn't hurt me, that instead made me feel more love than I've ever felt in my life. And what do I do with all of that? When I became curious about something going on in the human world, oftentimes I could feel my guides come in and engage me and bring information in for me as to how these things work. And I could then validate that with my parents or caregivers, you know. And so I was often met with like responses from my parents like, how do you know these things? You know, who told you that? And I would say, oh, I just know, you know, and that gave me a sense of belonging that I have always longed for. So it's a very rich experience to get so much affirmation from your explorations based on just one bit of being curious to the next. And it was a fun form of play to be able to engage my family. They often thought I wasn't paying attention, but I could also understand their sophisticated, what they would call adult talk, and the psychology behind some of their own relationships. So if they were ever speaking about friends or other family members, I completely understood intuitively what was going on and how to help, and you know, like how to assist in that. And it was help that they didn't solicit, so sometimes they'd be like, go play outside. You know, this is more than, I was often told by my mother, it's just, you're so much more than I know what to do with right now. So go play. But not my father, being the poet that he was, he thought that was delightful, and that the inspiration that I had mimicked the inspiration that he had. He never, somehow along the way in his development, he didn't lose his need to play the way that all children do. Even though his parents told him he needed to lose that, he never did. So every night I had interaction with them at dreamtime for years. And sometimes there would be periods of no interaction. And then sometimes, most often, when I was playing outside, I would sense them near me, and I could, whenever I knew that they were nearby, I would feel it. They taught me to feel it in the backs, as if the hairs on the backs of my ears had little antennas on it, and you could feel that they were coming, and it was a feeling sense of sound, a tinkling kind of feeling sense of sound that would tickle the hairs on the back of my neck too. And when they were there, I always felt right here in the back of my head a tone that was pleasant. It felt like belonging. And then I'd know I could, it would vibrate out.
Like a tuning fork?
Yeah, as if a tuning fork was struck, and that familiar tone that we knew between us would be set off, and then sure enough, I could hear them approaching. But because it was so frequent, it's not as if I went looking for it or I really counted on it happening. I just knew it would. And most often it would be footsteps, very heavy footsteps, running by. Because what they like to do is just let me know briefly, and it was random times, but let me know while I was playing that I was always safe and that I belonged, and it would let me know when I was at my highest point of joy in play. Keep it up. We like you to do this. We like you to feel this level of bliss while you're immersed in learning. I just felt as if they loved knowing that I was loving being alive so much and being a part of nature, really. So, but when I was in the midst of that, it would start in my heart region and my gut region. My heart and my gut were aligned, and my head was busy just in a process of exploring. So it could be mechanical, but my head would be guiding what my movements would be or my action would be. But from inside, it would be like the sense that you get when you are belly laughing out loud so hard with your friends that you can't stop, and you feel it rippling out from your being. That's what they said to me. That's what we want you to be all the time. Every night was like a college, like going to college was for me as a human. I loved college. I didn't really like high school or any of the other. But time spent with them was like my master class, and I'm recalling it's completely interactive. The virtual felt real. I was seeing through their eyes, or they were seeing through mine. It was holographic. It was multidimensional. It was healing. They would encourage me to feel the depths of everything so that I might know, because I didn't know. I was just I'd say new or naive to experience, and really believe sincerely that everything was loving, and everyone was benevolent, and everything that I would experience in my human life would be a reflection of that. So that's why I considered them to be like parents, because they would show me that in going through experience, it's not always pleasant. It doesn't feel good. It can be unsettling. But they showed me again and again and again how, was I really harmed? Was I really at the bottom of it? My feelings may have been hurt, and I may have felt abandoned. I could have felt the depths of despair that felt like it would last an eternity, but it didn't. I just learned. At the time, you might feel like a victim, the worst victim but if you're truly honest with yourself, you realize that we all have experiences that we interpret as suffering, and that wasn't spared. And we had a bit of a ritual. So the ritual would start like I would be dreaming, have a regular dream, just a normal sort of dream where maybe random images are coming, and then a symbol would come up, a personal symbol of mine that I thought it looked like a tube of a pipe I couldn't really tell what it was, but I knew that, here's a symbol. Here's the symbol that I've seen before. They've shown me this. And as soon as I saw that, I would see another image of something that I couldn't understand and didn't necessarily like, and then bam, I'd be awake and off.
Was there any preparation that you did before going to sleep?
No, just a solid knowing that I would have it. I could and have had it, so I would have it again. And in that knowing, then I would think about the previous dream, and I would suppose, what would I want to do tonight? And I always told my dreams to my family, and they always thought they were so boring. And why did I always have to tell them my dreams? From start to finish, I insisted, and they were polite, and they'd listen, but they didn't understand the significance to me. Even though they didn't always understand me, they knew how to reach me and help me focus and be engaged with them in the present moment. Because if they could speak to me on the level of my area of interest, even though it may have been a dream, or it may have been that I was busy thinking about my last artistic endeavor, even though they couldn't understand it, what I was making, they would be able to access me from that experience by asking me a simple question like, how did you feel about that painting? And then from there, we would be able to be engaged in whatever we were doing together. So they knew that much. They could appeal to me to pay attention if they would appreciate and validate what I was excited about.
Did you ever describe your friends in such a way that they would have interpreted that as being a Sasquatch being?
I don't know if they did, actually. I think they thought that it was only natural that I would have a great imagination and a willingness to go explore, and probably because we were moving so often, every year, every other year. I think my mother felt that I was coping with our moving by using my imagination in this way. As long as I woke up and told someone soon, I could remember everything. And I remember thinking about the dreams at school. And then I could recount histories of dreams. Once I told the story to one person, I could tell the week's dreams in one story, in detail.
And was it always to your family then that you recounted it, or did you ever share it with friends as well?
Friends at school, too. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes they would relate to friends at school. I would have a dream that I would be able to unite all of us as little children that maybe didn't get along so well. I would be able to raise the vibration of the playground to the point where we all got along great. We all played well together, and we all would rather learn with each other and outside than we would inside the buildings. They're very frank about it. You can ask, why am I receiving this inspiration? Why do I long to connect with the Sasquatch people on a spiritual level? And they'll say, we love that you do, and everyone belongs. We would love that everyone wanted to be with us. And then they would say, well, you are with us. You are all with us. We're happy that you want to know that. So we honor your knowing by being with you when you ask us a question. But everybody really knows. That's what they would say. Everybody really knows the answer to anything. They were careful to let me know that I wasn't an isolated inquirer, that I belonged to a greater community, but they wanted me to know that I didn't even need to communicate or reach out to them that they're there. And being is more important, and coming from a place of the heart and love in every interaction with every human being. Really, everything living must be treated with respect. So I didn't really get from them a sense that it was exclusive to me at all. They really would rather that I didn't think so. And they wanted me always to, if I felt compelled, share. But if I didn't, that was okay too. Because sometimes people just didn't want to listen at all. So I learned that, oh, well, I don't really talk about this with some members of my family or some of my friends because it's not for them. And no, they're always encouraging me to just shine. They say that the light is where all true knowledge lies and unites all of us. So be from that place where you know you're in the midst of it. And even when you feel like you may never feel the light again because of what you've just gone through, you are made of light, so you will never be completely in the dark. You'll return again. So they taught me so much about, because I was never a patient person. I was always active and busy, and I wanted everything now. So they taught me about the benefits of being patient. We had moved to Anchorage, Alaska, and for a time my father returned to attending the Catholic Church. And since he was new there, he was meeting people, and a couple of people that he met and really bonded with were two men in the clergy at the church in Anchorage. I could ask them questions about spiritual questions that I couldn't understand, and I actually got answers that made sense to me. And they may have been guided by the SASQUATCH too, and they didn't put me down. They didn't say, well, this doesn't fit in our religious text, so you shouldn't be thinking like this. They were always encouraging me to develop my spirituality and let that grow deeper and trust it. The SASQUATCH would send me images of their need to go to another dimension for a time. And it was not something they necessarily wanted to do, they just knew they needed to do. And they would show me where they would go. So I would see images of them in places that look like Earth, but weren't. There'd be no humans there that I could see, but there would be a vast wilderness. So like landscapes of alpine that would stretch, it just seemed forever and ever. Unspoiled, completely beautiful landscapes of alpine. And then they would show me how they tend to it like gardeners and lovingly touch every branch and put their fingers in the water and be with that layer of existence in whatever dimension they went to for the time they needed to be immersed in that, and then they would return again to be in the physical with us. And so I always had the sense, and I never really pursued it with them, that they sometimes had to go, and they didn't want to, that they're very much earth beings, just as we are, and they want us to be earth beings with them. They live so much immersed in the all that is, in the all time, the one time. They can understand a linear way of being, but that is not how they live. It's been a lonely process to have guidance that isn't encouraged in your family system to, for you to share. And initially I thought everyone were having similar experiences and enjoying this as much as I am. So I want to enjoy this with others. It was hard to realize as time went by that not many people that I knew were interested. I'd say a handful of people have come to me saying, we need to talk. Typically, when I speak about this, it's always sacred and it's deeply spiritual. I don't know that it would be, I would say it'd be personal, because I feel like every one of us has the need, the longing to connect at this level. I think that the reason why I felt that I was so lonely and disconnected, although I was getting this level of communion, I really only attribute it to our society and to what goes on when people want to disengage. Because they're tired, they're running like crazy, working, maybe doing things that they aren't passionate about, but they're doing it hoping to reach some level of happiness, and then they're tired, and so at the end of that they'll come home and maybe turn on the TV or disengage, find a way to numb down, and that's when the loneliness sets in. At least for me, that was the case. And so when that happens, there's a definite feeling of doubt and maybe separation, which is completely opposite of being outside and away from your work and away from worries or stresses. And when being outside, creating conditions for a positive experience outside. So, being prepared for what may come with the elements, and then finding something about being out there that you can relate to. It can be so simple as just taking a walk. But when we trade a walk for sitting down on the couch and watching TV, that's when it happens. And that is what the SASQUATCH talk about as a decision to not belong. And that is a wrong decision. They completely understand the need for connection, because that's how they live as a clan and family. They live in very close communities and family, and they have extended larger clans that they're a part of. And so communing with all of them, and telepathically you can see that they understand the necessity for being in active communication. They see our need for it, and with our cell phones, or just always checking to see who's trying to connect with us. But they're always teaching me, put that away. Put your phone away and sit and be aware that you're in the only moment there is. So be fully aware that everything that you do in this moment affects everything that has been or will come. That's really all you need to do. They love keeping it simple because they know that we complicate things too much. So they're always teaching me, don't overthink anything. It's better to experience from that place of knowing. They love showing me, teaching me, look at how different it can be in a matter of days when you go and just be in nature. Because nature is us. They're always saying that you're not separate. Even in your workplace, bring it in, breathe it in, breathe how you feel when you're out in that special place you like to go. And when you're upset, that's the best time to breathe it in and be with it. And they would like us to share, reach out to others, and simply ask, have you had any experiences in nature that have inspired you? And if so, do you think it's a coincidence? And let those networks form and feel the sense of belonging. That's the most important thing, is to stop living in illusions and just belong, because we need that. We've always needed that, but we need that more than ever, to belong to our natural world and accept that we do. Stop trying to manipulate. In the past few years, as I've been able to do that with people that they come from such different backgrounds of experience, I've just said, hey, have you ever had any Sasquatch experiences in the woods around here? So many people have. Hundreds. And they're delighted to share, and they're grateful that somebody else has. And all have said, I've never been harmed. In fact, I'm intrigued. I wonder, I suppose, what would it be like to have more? So they say, share those experiences and know that you are a part of something greater than we sometimes feel we are. So be with that. And then you will also know that we can't do without each other. We need each other to be well and do well and belong. When we are breathing, we're breathing in the life force that we are connected to. And we're breathing out what's no longer needed. And it's so important to do that fully. Take a breath from within, from the center of your being. And a deep breath, take a breath all the way in. And be aware that there is a space between the in-breath and the out-breath. That's also key. And then breathe out fully, the full capacity of your lungs. So they're always encouraging that and always asking to notice the breath. And notice that when we're going about our daily routines or we're very much in our headspace, we take these shallow breaths. And so we're not even getting enough oxygen. But by practicing and becoming familiar, we know we can tell when we're busy, oh, I'm not breathing well, I'm not breathing properly, and I'm not even here. When I do breathe rhythmically and fully, I'm more available to experience. I become a better mother or a better teacher or a better whatever I'm being. Everything begins with the breath because your heartbeat is connected to that breath, and their hearts are connected to ours. They encourage us always to feel from our heart, to feel them. Because you cannot know a Sasquatch and you will not be with them until you begin to know your own breath and your own beingness. Recently I was camping with my family, and my partner Jay doesn't have as many Sasquatch interaction experiences as I do in the physical, but he does have a few, and he appreciates them, and he's curious, and he'd like to know more about who the Sasquatch people are. So he has asked me how to know them better, and I always have said, well, you'll in order for that to happen, the only way to access them is through the heart, because they feel you and they know you're true. If you're of pure heart, they'll come to you if you'd like that type of interaction. So he's wanted that, and he's known that it would probably happen with me. But recently, as we were camping in our camper, I had that feeling in the back of my neck that, oh, we could have an interaction on the physical level with a Sasquatch person, but it also was time to go to sleep. So we're in the camper, and we're in our sleeping bags, and it's pitch black outside, and I noticed that Jay's falling asleep, and I'm not, because I still had that excited feeling. And then I hear the tone, and when I heard the tone, I was nudging him awake from falling into a deep sleep, and I said, I think, I feel something is going to happen, and maybe it won't, but we'll see. And sure enough, he wakes up because he hears this thump, 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 really heavy footsteps, like an elephant heavy, coming our way, and coming right up to the camper. And I look over at him, and his eyes are huge, and I'm smiling, and I'm happy because it's such an honor and it's a rare thing for me to have physical contact, and I never know when it will happen. So we're listening, and we're extremely aware as the Sasquatch wraps its arms around the sides of the camper, you know, 2 hands on either side, completely wrapped around us because we're in the upper level sleeping, completely around us. And I love, at this point, I'm getting that bliss feeling because I'm familiar with this is how you communicate. And he's just thinking, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to us? And then the vent above where we're sleeping is open. So the Sasquatch puts his or her face, I didn't know at the time. Of course, I couldn't see out of the camper, except there was a darkness through the little windows. Puts her face down to the vent, and I can hear the breathing, which reminds me, breathing is, it's a connection. But I hear breathing come to the window, and then this great big, and a huge, so the Sasquatch was taking a great big smell of us, a very deep smell. And so there's an in-breath and an out-breath, and then we hear breathing for maybe a minute or two as we're getting this. I can only describe it as a hug now in hindsight, but he's thinking, are we going to be eaten or shaken around in here, or what do I even do right now, because I'm already in bed. And I said, can you feel that? That's the difference. When you can feel that you're completely vulnerable to experience, and absolutely humble to. So that's what I meant when I'm saying, can you feel? And he's like, you know, and then her hands drop and she goes walking back off where she came from. He had the fight or flight experience feeling going on, and I didn't. I had the, oh my gosh, you know, come back and talk to us, sing, do anything, express yourself. But he was saying that, so he told me his process was that he was terrified, but he knew in his heart that he had hope for that type of connection. And then he got it as a person who's new to it, that if he went into a place of fear about it and decided that he felt out of control, it's absolutely terrifying. Like riding a horse, that you know the horse could take off and do whatever it wanted with you. So you have to surrender to the experience if you want an experience. And when you surrender, you realize you're absolutely powerless to do anything but be. And in surrendering that deeply, you are open to authentic experience of being and then belonging, because nothing negative has ever happened to me with them in my interactions. I have not been harmed. In fact, I've been assisted and helped when I may have been in danger. Some of the interactions that I've had with them are not of they are of a trickster nature, and so then I realized that this one's messing with me, you know. And hiking recently, I went up to a beautiful high mountain lake, and it was nighttime, and I wanted to stay, but it was getting cold. So as I was heading out, I noticed that the trail that I was taking, and I have years of hiking alone, and I have a great sense of direction. I always find my way based on landmarks and where the sun has come and gone. So I knew my way, and I have maps and even GPS, but the trail became confusing, whereas coming in, there was just one trail, you know. And on the way out, there was a very large pile of brush put in the middle of the trail, and so I looked at it, but I didn't think anything of it because I was lost in thought about something. And so my path was diverted, and I took this other path and went around. I was heading in a different direction, but I still wasn't noticing, which is funny to me because I'm usually paying sharp attention. I was completely turned around and disoriented. So I knew at that moment that I was being messed with. You know, of course, there's no way to prove it, but how did that pile of brush end up in the main trail? Well, I know why. It was just a joke on me for not paying attention in an area where I needed to pay attention. It's best for me always to be aware that in the elements, I must respect it. So, yeah, I think that the young ones need to be around different people, learning potential responses to being in proximity to them, and how interaction with some is a good idea, and maybe it's not such a good idea with others, and why. It has to happen that the young ones learn with us or from us. That may lead to interaction that can seem problematic at the time, and then there's usually a quick escape, But notice humans who have had encounters and record their encounters with the Sasquatch. I don't recall any encounters where humans were harmed by them. So I find that to be a wonderful thing. So why is there all this this myth that the Sasquatch will harm you if you come into contact with them or if you make eye contact with them? It's been my experience that when the Sasquatch are in their physical form, in your presence, their interactions are highly emotional. Like the way we would understand it is being around children, and the way they feel, they haven't disengaged from their emotions, they haven't been taught to. So the Sasquatch can be incredibly impassioned, and what they do with that, it translates into very loud vocalizations with a full range of emotions expressed sometimes, and sometimes their expressions can seem so intense that you wonder if you're going to be killed by it. When I've heard them in the forest, when they're singing to me or talking to me, they're so loud. They forget that it's loud to us. Their vocal range is so incredibly large that it hits you physically in the chest, and you feel the vibration of it. And usually they're expressing from such a high level of joy to be together that for me it's it amplifies your own experience of joy, but you're also keyed up. You're really quite literally vibrating from their presence, and then when they feel that in you, it amplifies it even more. But they know how much you can take because they're feeling it right along with you. But I haven't seen them angry, but I know that if they were upset, oh my gosh. If that's their happy, if they're upset and they're trying to send a message to drawing a line or a boundary, like don't come any closer, and they let you know, there's no doubt you'd respect it. You'd be completely powerless to be any other way than to respect it. They're not afraid of their own emotions. They don't teach their young to be afraid of their emotions. They teach them to be aware that they're there, and they always know that it's natural to feel. So by knowing that, I don't think that they feel out of control with their emotions at all. These are simply my emotions, and this is how I express my emotion. That's only natural.
And we could learn so much from that.
As a woman, alone in the woods, I have spent hours of my life, days and days of my life, feeling completely safe. And knowing that I could encounter a wild animal, right? You could be walking down a city street and encounter a rogue person that wants to harm you. But in the woods, I've never felt safer. That's 20 years of experience. No, more than that, really, when you count my childhood. But I'm saying the intention to go out alone as a woman in the woods, some people consider that a bold thing. For me, no, it's a reality that that's where I belong. And to try to separate myself from that would be wrong.
As somebody who works in media, I'm struck at how persistent some of the myths and misconceptions about Sasquatch are, and the fact that we as people continue to appropriate the name of them for these depictions of ridiculous monsters that have absolutely nothing to do with the reality of Sasquatch. Do you have any theory as to why those distortions are so persistent?
Oh, because there must be some kind of agenda there, but...
I mean, do you feel that there's like an active program in the media to disseminate this type of false information?
Yeah. Some are invested in us not being connected to nature so that our natural we will become separate from our natural world and like our connection to it. And when we are separate, feel separate from it, it's easier for people with that agenda to manipulate the natural world. And it's easier for us to pretend like it doesn't matter. So, but it does matter now more than ever. And because it does, I don't have TV at home. I've refused to participate on that level, and it's a very conscious intention. Because I think I would encourage everyone to go feel the difference. Go be in a place they love to be, and take a vacation from their lives just for a little while and not be a part of that. Then go back to it and notice the difference. You won't feel like yourself. You'll feel less of yourself. You'll feel sick. You feel like there's nothing you can do. I feel like I can't affect any kind of change that's good for the earth, and all of that is wrong.
It's so important for everyone to realize that they don't have to buy into that agenda.
Yeah, making a conscious decision to turn off the devices is a great one. Even if you do it as a routine that supports you every day, just to take an hour or two and shut the phone off. That would be a great thing and make a huge difference. We'll have to make some very intentional decisions, or they will be made for us. Isn't it obvious, when you really pay attention, that if we keep embracing these new technologies without really fully understanding what we are committing to by doing that, we really are making a decision to just follow. Sasquatch have clued to me that these are your friends and they're assisting. And we belong. Although they don't live here, they love us and they want us to be well. They want the earth to make it. So to be aware that that they are working together to assist us in raising the vibration and helping us remember that we don't have to live this way. There is free will here still. So make decisions that are for our highest good and the good of all around us. I would encourage people to go outside more at night and look around, and you'll see them. Many of my friends have, and my grandparents have. So many in my family have. I know it's a good idea to talk about what you see and feel. Most importantly, what you feel when you're experiencing them in an encounter, and share what that means to you. The extraterrestrials that I know have said, isn't it better to know that our intelligence is here with you than to think that you are the smartest thing out there? And it's like, okay, yeah, now I'm paying attention.
Thank you for checking in with the Sasquatch Clearinghouse with some questions that we prepared following up on my recent interview with Kate. What struck me about her interview is that, the Sasquatch have been nearly a constant presence in her life since she was 2 years of age. And the teaching that they've imparted to her has been profound by any account. I'm wondering if you could fill us in a little bit about what the Sasquatch had to say about their relationship with Kate and the teaching that they've offered her, both in the dream state as well as in the face-to-face encounters that she's had.
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Chris. I did check in with them about Kate specifically. and how they had reached out to her from the very beginning, or her connection with them. What they said, quote, there are many other special ones like Kate, who we knew before she came here. She has been with our people many times. We teach her from beginning about light. We help her remember the old ways she lived with us. Now she here to teach other ones of your people. We came to her when she was very small. We did not want her to learn ways that are not truth from your people. We wanted her to be like she was when one of our children. She's been a SASQUATCH person for a long time. We want her to stay strong and clear and pure. Teaching, remembering from the early beginning is best. Teach your children from early beginning the way of light of heart. They want to remember. Many come now who remember strong in the way of light. Your people must encourage the remembrance for them. They're talking about the new souls that are coming in as babies, and they do remember the way of light, probably a lot better than most of us do. Do not try to remove the simple way for them. Your little ones will teach you and help you to remember the old ways, the way of light, of truth. The little ones know it is so simple. They want your people, the older ones, to remember also. Throw out all the busy stuff. Be in your heart, as we tell you many times. Let the little ones be the love, the light they know they are when they come here. Let them remember the All One, how to live in respect for all others of the All One. Respect for life of all is the most important. We teach our little ones from early beginning about respect for each one for themselves. We teach much respect for parents. No respect, not grow up good in light. Teaching our little ones to remember old ways. They already know. Our big ones help them remember what they already know but sometimes forget. In other words, the adult Sasquatch help the little ones remember if they need some help in remembering. But they sometimes forget. They went on to say, we like our little ones to spend time in trees with the other ones who live there, like, and my insight was animals, plants, birds, trees. You know, they just really want their little ones to be out in nature and really, revel in nature. They went on to say they spend much time with our old ones. I've gotten this before from them, but there's a real telepathic exchange of information and seeking of information from the little ones to the old ones, like the elders. And it's telepathic. There's like some real powerful stuff that goes to these little ones. The little ones know now. There is only now. Your people try to tangle all up. Do not tangle. We help little ones make the most, as you call it, about now.
Well, it's very interesting to contrast the Sasquatch way of teaching their youngsters with what is the model that we normally use for teaching our youngsters. How would the Sasquatch like us to talk to our kids about them?
I asked them that, Chris, and they said, quote, tell your little ones about our people. We are just like them, meaning the little hairless ones, only we have more hair and not live in houses, as you call it. We shine light. Tell them to respect our people and all others of the All One. Respect is the most important. Teach them of old ways, simple ways of our people. First, you must know and be in your heart yourself before you can teach your little ones to be in heart. They know when you are not in your heart, even when you tell them you are in your heart. They know. The most important way of the Sasquatch is to be in heart. They can only shine light when they be in heart. Your teaching is your being. In other words, you can't teach about being in your heart unless you are in your heart, which is simple, but it's pretty powerful.
It's worth reminding us. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the past, they've often stated that, you know, so much of what they're doing here in their waking hours and in their dreaming hours is about shining light and about being of service.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think they really embody the idea, the model of service very, very well. You know, whether it be service to other creatures in the forest or the planet, or
Mm-hmm.
whether it be, you know, ameliorating some of the negative effects that we leave in the environment.
Really what they're saying here is really powerful. I mean, respect, shining the light, be in our heart, and you have to be in your heart before you can teach. And that's probably the hardest thing. You know, we think we're so used to going into a classroom and just the teacher, you know, espouses all of the material. But, you know, who are they really? And if they are in their heart, that what they say is going to be a lot more powerful.
Well, when I spoke with Kate, she emphasized how important has been the dreamtime teaching for her from the time when she was very young. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the dreamtime teaching, so to speak, and what the Sasquatch had to say about the dreamtime and its potential for learning and growth.
Teaching, yeah. I did, you know, broach that topic with them, and they said about dreamtime, quote, "Dreamtime, as you call it, is real time for our people. It is when we can come to your people very easily. The reason for this is dreamtime is only time your people cannot make a cloud between us." My insight about that was, it's like the only time in our dreamtime that we let our guard down completely. And that removes that cloud, as they call it, in the communication between us. They went on to say, then they have no fear, no anger, no concerns. They only be. Light is all around them in the dreamtime. Well, in other words, this was my insight. We don't block the light in our dreamtime with our anger, fear, concerns, etc. I guess you might say we're sort of innocent, as it were. But when we're like that, there's not a cloud. The veil is thinner or non-existent between us and the Sasquatch. And so they really do use it as a time to teach us and share information. They went on to say, it is best time for our people to tell all good words to your people. We show them pictures too. We walk into their hearts. We bring light. Sometimes are easier than other times. It is best for us when you think and feel in the light in your heart before you go to dreamtime. This makes our job easier to get in there.
And that runs so contrary to the way most of us, or many of us anyway, live our lives, where, you know, we're stimulating ourselves, and whether it be with television or the computer or whatever, before going to sleep. And we really oftentimes don't allow ourselves that period of transition and that period of dream incubation.
This is just me speaking, but you know, I think another thing that really amplifies or magnifies that connection, that clear connection with them, is when not only just think positive thoughts, but you know, just really focus on them and, you know, why or what maybe we want to hear from them or experience from them in dream time. It's not like we can really set the dream, but I think we can sort of set the context of the dream, you know.
Well, Kate was saying that in various times she's used the technique of writing out her intentions for the dreaming before going to sleep. And whether you write it out or whether you know, just hold the intention, that's extremely important, you know. And of course the whole subject of recall, you know, training yourself to recall your dreams, keeping a tape recorder by the bed, or if you happen to be a fast writer and can see in the dark, keeping a notebook by the bed to be able to do it. But the important thing is really to write it down or record it as soon as you wake up.
Right.
You know, the thought will just
Oh, it
be,
does. I think writing your intention
yeah,
before you go to sleep is very powerful.
and repeating it if necessary, writing it multiple times.
Right.
On one of my last hikes with Kate into a very beautiful wilderness in Washington, we seemed to encounter an individual at a particular place who seemed to be looking out and very curious. And Kate had some very strong impressions about who that individual might be. And I'm wondering if you could give us some impressions from the clearinghouse on who he or she was.
Well, Kate was right. There was definitely a Sasquatch there. I'll share what I got from them. We can talk about it. They said, quote, "The one of whom you speak, watch for your people in that place." In other words, I mean, they sort of showed me a picture of this Sasquatch on the hillside, sort of looking down on the path. Like a guard, really. Not a guard, but, a watch person. They went on to say, they come there many times in warm times, meaning our hairless people. There's a lot of hairless people walking on that path in warm times, but not so, they said, not so now, not so much. Tutuni, that's what his name is. Tutuni shines light to the ones who come there. The light shows the heart of the hairless ones. Hairless ones who be in heart can feel Tutuni. Sometimes he show to them, meaning he materializes and he actually meets with, is with the people. He's strong, young one of our people. They showed me many Sasquatch were standing in the background behind him, waiting to get the okay from him to, either share information or come forward or just get the okay that the hairless human was okay to deal with or show, It was sort of interesting. Tutuni has good heart and strong body. He wants you to remember more. I think he's speaking to you, Chris. He wants you to remember more. He will help you. He come to you in dreamtime. You will know him. But they showed me a vision of him up there, and it's like he had this beam of light that would just sort of go and say, what's this guy's heart like? Is he walking in light, or is he still walking around in his head?
Yeah, which is a challenge for me because I am often walking around in my head. Even when I'm thinking about walking around in my heart, I'm walking around in my head.
Even when you're on a beautiful path like that?
Yeah.
Out in the wilderness?
Yeah. Well, I think that's also why they encourage us to go into the forest alone, because if you're with somebody and talking, even somebody as wonderful as Kate, you are going to be more in your head. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're alone, you're just there reacting and listening and reaching out in your thoughts and in your emotions. So that made a lot of sense, and I did feel this individual kind of with me for a way going down the hill, a kind of meeting of the consciousness or meeting of the hearts on some level. And I would like to meditate on that some more and maybe reconnect.
Well, you may not even have to meditate on it. I think he's sort of stuck on you for at least for a while here. It just felt like that, it's like almost a personal guide. Yeah, it was neat, and I didn't ask him what his name was. They just told me, Tutuni. Yeah. I mean, for clients sometimes I do ask what their name is or something like that, and I didn't do that. They just said Tutuni. Yeah. He had a good heart. They said he had a good heart and a strong body.
And I did feel a distinctive personality there.
Yeah.
It wasn't something generic and bland. It was a distinctive personality. So thank you for getting that information. I'm going to follow up. Finally today, as an appendix to our special report last year from Ontario, Canada, we present the complete, unedited audio interview with the landowner's father, Bill, who first began having interactions with the Sasquatch in that area more than 35 years ago. Bill offers a number of insightful anecdotes that were not included in the edit and which tend to support the idea of long-term ties existing between some of our families and some of the Sasquatch families. Bill passed away last autumn. We pay tribute to his warm heart and inquiring mind. We are also pleased to report that other members of his family continue to have spirited, ongoing interactions with the family of Sasquatch that apparently resides nearby. Thank you for joining us. See you next time. Let's see. So Bill, could you just give us a little background on how you acquired the cabin? You said it was 35 years ago?
35 years ago. We bought it as an investment and just come up here every weekend in the winter and summertime, snowmobiling in the winter, boating in the summer, fishing and things like that. Just what typical Canadians do in the wintertime and summertime, you know.
Is it okay to say that you worked in the auto industry?
Yeah.
So maybe just tell us a little bit about your background, in the auto industry.
Well, I worked in General Motors for 41 years before I retired in 2002, and this was supposed to be a retirement home for me, and just things didn't work out the right way, but it's still retirement home to me anyways, and there's just, we come up here and enjoy ourselves. And
so originally you intended to stay here full time once you retired?
Yeah. We were gonna, it's winterized and everything, so it's we always used to have a big crowd up here in the wintertime, and sit around the campfire in the summertime and tip back a few cold ones, and just enjoy ourselves, and lately there's been strange things happening, and that I didn't realize what they were originally until I actually had proof of it.
But you think that there were Sasquatch here among you from the time when you first moved out here, or when you first acquired the cabin?
I think they have always been in this area. Now, whether they've actually been right as close as they are now, I think they have probably moved into this area from another closer by, and sort of were out their welcome or whatever, ran out of food, or they started being harassed or something, or they were being found out about too many people, and so they had to move. That's my theory.
So Bill, in those early days when you first started coming out to the cabin, did you have any sense that they were here, or any hints that they might be around?
I never really thought about Sasquatch or Bigfoot until we saw the picture on TV about the guy taking the movie of it back in 1996, or was it that famous movie that was shot
in the 60s,
Patterson, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so never really thought about it until it got really publicized, and then even we were sitting around the campfire at night and heard strange noises up in the forest behind us, and say to my wife, well, it's a raccoon, and it's an awful big raccoon. There used to be a lot of bears, and figured, well, it's a bear just walking across. But then we were sitting around a campfire one night, and my son went in behind the shed to do his thing, and he came back out terrified, and he says, there's a bear sitting there watching us.
How old was he at the time?
Oh, this is maybe 10 years ago. He'd be 32, 33. And, we're sitting around having a good time around a blazing fire, and I never really even thought about it until I was told that it probably wasn't a bear. It was likely a Bigfoot, because then you start to think that what would a bear be doing sitting between the two cottages watching us around the fire, where bears don't come around people, especially with fires. And we just never related to it.
Was it your son that encouraged you to think that, well, maybe that was what it was? That it was?
No, it was. I was sleeping in the bedroom by myself one night, and it was, I think, June of 2012, just a couple of years ago now, and I woke up suddenly in the morning and sat right up and looked out the window, which I don't normally do. I usually take my time, but something woke me up. And I looked out the window, and there it was standing there. My estimate, it was 7, 8 feet, maybe a little bit taller.
And was he facing you, or was his back to you?
It was facing up the hill.
So his back was to you.
Yeah, it was about 30 feet away, 35 feet away. And I rubbed my eyes, and I'm seeing things, and looked back out and was still there, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing to start with, but it was standing just as plain as day. And so I got up and went to the bathroom and come back, and it was gone. And but I had never related to strange happenings up here to the Sasquatch until then.
So it was kind of important in opening or driving home the idea that they really were here.
Yeah.
Well, before we move on from that, could you tell me just anything more about the physical details of the guy or gal? Whatever.
It was a dark reddish brown, and you could make out the legs, but there was just a mass of hair, really. You could make out the shoulders and the head, and it looked to me at first like it was just one mass of hair going right from the top of its head right down to the bottom. And but it was big, and but apparently there's bigger ones. I have yet to see it. That was the only one I've seen.
And how did it make you feel when you saw it?
It didn't hit home really until I told my wife a couple hours later that I think I'd seen a Bigfoot. And she says, "You're crazy, it was a bear." And I says, "No, bears don't look like that." I've seen enough bears to know what they look like. But
your reaction, though, I mean, it wasn't clearly one of fear, right?
No, it wasn't fear. No.
Was it a sense of warmth, or how?
It was. I still don't believe it today that I saw it, but I've seen it. I know I've seen it. I'm not making this up. It's just, and ever since then, like when I told my other son about it, and they started coming up, and when I come up here by myself, I'll usually hear 3 knocks on a tree. They're letting me know that they're there, and we receive marbles and there's gifts from them. There's been all kinds of gifts given to them, and all kinds of footprints in the snow in the wintertime, and in fact there's quite a few casts made.
Just double checking this to make sure everything's going okay. Yep. So clearly when you come up here, even if you're alone, you don't feel threatened by them in any way.
No. I realize what they are because of I have read about them. My son, I don't really get into them like my son does, but I know they're here. They don't bother me, I don't bother them. But I've heard them quite a few times. And
what type of things do you hear when you do hear them?
Well, the wood knocks, and you'll hear them tap on the side of the cottage or throw marbles or something, and they'll hit the roof and roll down the roof, or small stones, and I think they're just trying to attract your attention. But I stayed up here one night. They were up here, and we had quite a few not encounters. We didn't see any, but there was lots of activity that night, or that weekend. And when they left, there was one outside just bugging me. They're playful people. They're playful things, whatever you want to call them. but they try to draw. The way I feel is they try to draw your attention all the time, and they only let you see them when they want you to see them. No, I haven't seen a lot because I'm just not capable of going up in the forest with them, but I've had a few things. The one night comes to mind is I went to bed and was reading, and I have a little dog that comes up here with me all the time. And whenever this dog is restless, I know there's Bigfoot around. And I just don't pay attention. Now, I've had an awakening this weekend why the poor dog is going crazy when they're around. And they feel that one of them is a little child one that comes in and plays with the dog, and the dog doesn't like it. The dog isn't playful with humans. It's old.
So even with hairless humans, the dog doesn't like to really engage. Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes, but I never thought about that until they said something about it on the weekend, that the little girl was coming in and playing with the dog, pulling her tail and stuff like that. And it makes you laugh when you hear this stuff. But it sounds logical. Like I don't know how they get into the cottage without opening the doors and stuff like that. I don't.
Well, that's what I was going to say. We should clarify for the listener that when you say they come in and play, they are here, but they're not like in a fully solid form.
Not their body. They're whether they can make themselves invisible.
Yeah.
And
they're in some kind of interdimensional state, but the dog clearly recognizes it.
Yeah, well, the dog will I always take the dog out to do his business about 11 o'clock at night. And she'll go out in the road in front of the cottage, and she'll wander up in the bush a little, maybe 10 feet up, and do her business and come down. Now, when there's one of the big guys around, she won't go across the road at all. She'll stay right on in front of the cottage and do her little business and then come back in. But when they're not around, she'll go up and sniff around and everything else, and she knows when they're there.
Yeah.
Animals have a sense that, but I can always tell when they're around.
Well, also, apparently there was an incident where you overheard a conversation.
Oh, yeah. I went to bed one night. I was up here with myself and the dog, and I spent a lot of time up here by myself, being retired. And I went to bed and I was reading. This was around 11 o'clock at night. And I heard one of them up in the bush make a whoop, whoop, whoop sound. And it was loud, really loud. And it just sent a feeling through my body that just can't explain it. It's just like I got a chill through my whole body, and it just, and so that lasted a minute or two, and so I went back to reading, and then
But just to clarify, when you say a chill, it wasn't a chill of fear, but more recognition or some kind of...
Yeah, just, like, it's hard to explain just what it was, but it's just, like I'm a car fanatic, and whenever I used to go to stock car races and hear the sound of them engines all the time, you would get this feeling over your whole body, and just, well, that's some of the feelings that I had that night, eh? And
so it was a kind of excitement almost.
yeah, and so anyways, when that was over, I read a bit more and then turned the lights out, and I am hard of hearing. When I go to sleep, I take my hearing aid out, and but that night, I just started to fall asleep when I heard a grunt outside my bedroom window. And then a gibbering, like a little child talking away a mile a minute. And the big one was a real gruff voice, as if he was trying to tell her to keep quiet. And then this lasted for, a good 30 seconds. And I sort of laughed to myself because it was related to human beings, that they're trying to get between the two cottages without making a noise. And the little one is just jabbering away, and the bigger one is trying to keep her quiet. And
So the meaning of that exchange seemed clear to you. I mean, just
oh yeah,
what was
it
going
was
on.
really funny, you know. It's like, I understand them, and I'm just not really into it. But I know they're there, and it just, I just let them be, you know. Just
Well, that's really interesting what you're saying about just that understanding in you. It's not intellectual or anything. It's just a kind of knowing, isn't it?
yeah. And I have dreams about them. Now, whether they put that in your mind or not. One incident, whether this actually happened or not, but I dreamed about it. Now, I know that they can play games with your mind, but I have a stone wall in front of my property along the road, and I was sitting on it one day. And I'd be out working outside, I'd sit there and have a cigarette. And that night I dreamt that I was sitting there, and there was a Sasquatch sitting beside me, talking to me, but its mouth wasn't moving. And he kept on pointing to the cigarette in my hand and pointing to my chest, as if, you know, you shouldn't be doing that. You know,
When you were sitting next to that fellow in the dream, did it feel like that was the same guy that you saw? Or
no, I think it was a smaller one. And I really couldn't tell it, but it was different. It wasn't the same one that I saw. And
I'm rolling again now. Okay, sorry. Yeah, we have plenty of. We're doing okay time-wise here. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
okay. No, I know definitely the one I seen in my dream was not the one that I originally saw. So it's, from what I understand, there must be a family of them living up there, and I think there probably is. Small ones, teenagers, just like ordinary people, but they keep to themselves. They don't want to be disturbed. They don't want to, you know, just they just want to be left alone, and they might hold a lot of answers. But
Do you remember any of your other dreams about them?
no, not really. Just that's the one that really comes to mind that I can remember most right now. And
Bit of practical advice on their part.
yeah. But I know that I saw that one originally. I saw it, and it's still hard for me to believe that I did see it. And now, whether they do that to you, or I have read where they speak by telepathy and other stuff like that. You know, just, I don't know.
Well, it would seem that from what you described, that you've, in the situation where you describe sort of knowing what they're saying, I mean, that seems like a sort of telepathic interaction between you.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's not something that somebody would necessarily say, oh yeah, I have a telepathic interaction, but nevertheless, you just have a sense of knowing about,
Yeah.
about them.
It's yeah, it was strange, you know, and that's, like my grandson will come up here the odd time with me, and we'll be gone away, and we'll come back, and we'll find marbles all over the place in his guitar. We go home and we'll find marbles in our suitcases, and you know, and wonder how they got there because they weren't there when we come up. You know, the stuff like that is just, you know, like you'd almost think it's childish, but whether they're, you know.
Well, do you and your wife talk about it very much? About
Oh yeah, my wife's a believer in them. Yeah,
Yeah.
she'll go back up in the woods and she'll feed them, and she has actually never seen one or had. I can't really say she hasn't had any contact with them. She's received marbles from them right in her lap when she was sitting on a chair with my son, and you know, they were just they weren't throwing, they were just dropped in her lap, and nothing around, you know. Stuff like that happens all the time up here, and you know, just
Yeah.
I don't know.
I had a first-hand experience last night with
Yeah.
that, where I was sitting on the couch and
Oh, you're sitting inside when it happens?
sitting inside, yeah, and,
Yeah.
and it seemed to just appear out of thin air.
Oh, I never knew that, yeah.
And this was just last night.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's like the night before. My son had a bunch of pepperoni in the fridge, and all but 3 were gone. So now you explain to me how that happens. You know, it's
well, what would you say to? I mean, your background. Would you say that you're somebody who has been interested in paranormal phenomena specifically, or just have been open-minded throughout your life?
I've always been interested in aliens, and I read a lot about aliens, about Van Daniken's theory and stuff like this, and I'm a firm believer in some of that stuff. Not all of it, but a lot of it, and I think the two might be related.
I mean, that what I didn't really want to get so much into the aliens, but I just wanted to give people an idea of the idea that, you know, you're a normal guy. You know, you're not a guy who necessarily goes to seances or
No,
you know,
I
that
don't.
sort of.
I don't believe in some of that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
It's scary sometimes, but
But still, you're open-minded and you've
yeah, I'm just,
allowed things.
you know, like I don't go out of my way to investigate them or nothing else. Like I said before, I know they're there, and it would be nice to see another one, but you know, just to reinforce your memory. But I think it's a lot of it's just so hard to explain and put in the right words that, you know, and just I'm not a person that can use big words and try to you know, interpret things, but I know what I saw, and it I'm not as scared of them. Just from what I've heard, that they're very docile and they just want to be left alone, and you know, but I guess they want to have company too. They get sick and tired of playing with each other, so they start playing with us. You know, so it's but I read lots of books on them, and so you know, I know what to expect from what other people have encountered with them, and so far I haven't. I've had, like I told you already, that I've had a few experiences with them, and that you know, it's just everything else just.
What's interesting though is, you know, even subtracting out all that you've read and heard about other people, you just seem to have a basic knowing of them, and knowing that they're here,
yeah,
and knowing that they're not threatening to you in
Yeah.
any way, and knowing maybe they have something to share.
yeah. Well, I think they probably do have something to share with you, but they have to gain your trust and they don't want to come up and tell you something and then give you a secret, then want you to go out and spread it around the world, and stuff like that. And just
Would you have any advice to somebody who may be in a similar situation to you, where they maybe have property, a rural property or remote property, and these things are happening? In your case, again, you've never felt any threat from that,
No,
and it hasn't been an annoyance. Is there any advice you would give to somebody who's in a situation where maybe they don't know what to make of these noises or these signs?
Well, I think if more people are educated to the fact that they are around here all over the world. Originally, everybody just thought it was on the West Coast in British Columbia and Washington and Oregon, but now there's sightings all over North America, and nobody ever thought they would be in Ontario until just recently, and I would imagine, but if one walked up to me, I wouldn't turn around and run away. I would probably want to find out, why they're here, where they came from, why, what is the purpose of being here, and, stuff like that, that's what I would really be interested in. But other than that, I wouldn't point a rifle at them, because you never know what's going to happen. They might get a little bit ugly. If they're what they say they are, part human, and they would have human instincts like any animal. They protect themselves, and they're a lot bigger than we are. So we have had trees knocked down. They were about 6 inches in diameter, Mike? And nobody there. So it's
Well, this is excellent, I think. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I don't.
That you'd like people to know about them, or know about your personal, how they make you feel, your personal experience being here among them?
I think if I they have a calming effect on people, and that's the way I think. Like, I'd be more worried about somebody trespassing on my property than them. Because can't say any. I have no fear for them. And apparently they have no fear for me neither. So it's
Great, that's excellent. Yeah, there's some good stuff in there, yeah.